All right, team. We went to a economic forum the other day, and a gentleman that I highly respect, and certainly was a great presentation. Just a few little things that we took away. So, what 2026 real estate market is going to look like, some skill sets that you need as an agent, and just some reality of what I think is going to happen. I guess it's a prediction, but at the same point in time, is that I think that this could give you some insights to the way you need to set your business up and your mindset going into 2026. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Okay, team. Went to an economic forum just the other day, so I wanted to do this while it was fresh. We went to Chapman University, and the head of economics and real estate, the professor there. I'm not going to pronounce his name because I don't believe I'm going to get it right. But I'll make sure that I put maybe a link in the bio afterwards. But we spent probably about 90 minutes. And it was a really interactive session. Now, this is a gentleman that's built over $1 billion fund, and then he retired from all of that just to go back and now be a professor teaching kids the economics of real estate, the economics of just market conditions. And it was really great to go through a bit of a contrarian view to what the media is going through in the economic state of things at the moment. Now, the one thing that really stood out to me that I wanted to dive into quickly into the episode, and I look, we're in November, people are starting their planning journey of what's going to happen in 2026. And I wanted to sort of point out that 2025, if I was to reflect at this time last year, the optimism of the real estate community that 2025 was going to be an easier year because 2024 wasn't the year that they wanted. I know that there's a level of optimism that goes into every single year, but I just want to be realistic around what 2026 looks like. I was talking to some real estate agents today about business planning, and they were very optimistic with what their business looks like in 2026. It was kind of already like they'd take their foot off the gas pedal for the remainder of the year. They were tired of it being as tough of what it ultimately has been, certainly in many marketplaces that we operate in. But the one thing that this gentleman who was the professor and his colleagues were so certain about was that by the end of 2026 that we were going to see upwards of 5% inflation. Now, I sat back and I thought about that from a real estate perspective, and I looked at it in the sense of, what does that mean for the real estate industry? Because I think there's a couple of different things. Is that I constantly get a lot of people that say, well, we're just waiting for interest rates to drop and that'll help the marketplace. I think that we need to be realistic with our sellers. We need to be realistic with ourselves that every single time that there is a decrease in interest rates, there is an influx of new real estate that comes to marketplace. And don't get me wrong, is you're not probably seeing that to the same extent as what you should in the November and December months. You probably won't, because people are taking their homes off the marketplace for the holiday period. That doesn't mean that once it hits, February next year, that they are going to come on the marketplace in an influx. But it also means as well that if inflation is going to increase, and that's what he said, inflation will hit 5%, okay, by the end of 2026. If inflation is still going to tick up, that means they are going to have to stop doing interest rate reductions, and they're likely going to have to start raising interest rates again. He was very set on the fact that we will never see anything that's lower than probably 5% from a Fed rate perspective. He doesn't believe that, the mortgage rates he believes will only be between 5 and 6%. Very rarely will they dip below the 5%. And he's talking about the long-term future over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, again, I'm not sure. I don't know the indicators. He definitely went through a great deal of what everything looks like and what has been happening. But the one thing that really stuck with me is the understanding of that the inflation element that they are predicting will be, upwards of 5% here by the end of 2026 means that there isn't going to be the interest rate reductions that we're all hoping for, that all of a sudden is going to turn our real estate faucet back on. I think we need to be realistic in the perspective that this will be the marketplace. Maybe it won't be as tough as this, but in essence is that there might be some normality in the marketplace of longer average days on marketplace. Price reductions are the norm. And that is, I guess, what the skill set has presented to us that we need to start working on for 2026. One, being realistic about what we need, what is on the horizon. Let's try not to be overly optimistic that the market is all of a sudden going to be way better just to be disappointed later. And I know that's sounding very glass half empty, But I do believe that there's got to be some type of reality that we set ourselves on so we're not disappointed, as I mentioned. The other part that then I look at as well is that what is the skill sets that I need to focus on as I move into 2026? And that is communication with my sellers. What is my plan around communication? What is my plan in the very beginning of the listing presentation to communicate with them about the average days on marketplace in an area, the average number of price reductions, the average number of everything, taking out the case studies and looking at what all of those averages are, but then going away from the averages also and looking at specific use cases within their marketplace that, hey, whilst this one did sell at X amount of time, this one has been on the marketplace that isn't that much different for 100 and odd something days. What do you think the differences are? Giving them an understanding of that strategy. But then the communication element and having that plan every single week as the listing progresses, and also having a plan around the price reductions that are ultimately needed and constantly updating them of the inventory that is moving and selling and changing hands within their marketplace, keeping them up to speed with that. And that is something that we have worked on very hard with all of the agents that we conduct auctions with around the country, is that, are you talking to your sellers about the inventory that is pending? What is going pending locally? Put it into perspective for them is that there's 50 listings in your immediate area and 2 of them went pending last week, or none of them went pending last week. That has a lot of impact on the market, on your sellers, when you are able to talk to them of the fact of that there wasn't anything that went pending. There wasn't anything that went under contract in the last week. And again, guys, you might think, well, my marketplace is still moving, but as a percentage versus listings, we need to be able to show them what is going on in the marketplace, and this is going to take some time. Time and your ability to extend it with your clients is going to be the thing that gets you through 2026. It's going to get you through any marketplace, because we can all deal in marketplaces where things move quickly. But your ability to extend the time, your ability to give them an understanding, your ability to have a longer period of time in that relationship with that seller and making them feel like, hey, you're doing everything in your power in order to get the home sold. So that was one of the blaring obvious things that we went through in the economic summit, so to speak, that we were in. It was a really interactive session where people got to ask many, many, many questions. And the reality that I came out of it, and this is a gentleman that I definitely respect. I've looked at some of his narrative, but it was pretty clear that based on his narrative, based on many other narratives that I listened to from an economic perspective, no one has any idea what's going to happen. I truly don't believe they have any idea, because there's this curveball that is out in the ethos of all of this, is that there's tariffs that no one knows the real effect of, and there is also the incredibly large debt that the US government has. And part of that is where people are like, we don't know what the combination of both of those are. If you compare it to 1929, tariffs were a very, very big issue in the prolonged Great Depression. However, going into 1929, not 2029, 1929, going into the Great Depression, the US government was in a surplus. They weren't in debt. So there is nothing really historical to measure it against. And that has, I don't know, it just has me cautious. So you've got to expect your clients to be cautious as well. And your ability to talk them through this, your ability to give them facts, your ability to communicate and get a prolonged period of time on market, or deal with a prolonged period of time on market while still dealing with that relationship, I think is going to be the skill set that is needed in 2026. Thanks so much. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.